turned off the video purposely. I'll turn it on later on when you go to question and answer. Looks like we are a smaller crowd, so stop me at any point and we can chat about this, right? Instead of me trying to finish up whatever I've decided to talk. I can, I've did this presentation before. So for me, it's not a goal to finish it within the time. The goal is to someone learning something from the talk, right? That's more important for me. So you can stop me anytime. It has a lot of content, and I know that I'm not going to get through everything. But my goal is for someone not to make you an expert on Kusto query language within 60 minutes. Rather, my goal is that you get some pointers and you can take this and use it to get it started, right? If you do not know, what it is, if you're not using it, right? That's kind of my goal. And so I'll be talking about many different things, and I'll upload all this in my GitHub repo. You can download, you can practice it, you can get back to me if you have any question. And then I'll definitely help you by answering those. I learned this pretty much in my job. I use this day in, day out. I have a bunch of resources in Azure in different region, and we cannot be monitoring this by being in front of the screen, right? Meaning always looking at what's going on. We need to have some kind of mechanism that works for us. Especially this solution, we started building about 4 years ago, and we realized that we need to have a mechanism that we can scale out, right? So doesn't matter if you have one or if you have 100 SQL database, and I'm talking about PaaS solution mostly, you can use this. So this can work. Doesn't matter how many databases you have. But if you do not plan it from the beginning, then it can become a problem when your enterprise grow and when you have more resources in cloud. So take a note of my contacts, right? If you have any question, comments, get back to me after that. And meantime, if you have any question, put in the chat and Paul can stop me, and we can definitely take a detour and talk about it.
Sure.
Yeah. So what's a Kusto query language, right? Kusto query language is actually Kusto. If you just use the word Kusto, people can interpret this in many different ways. Microsoft, many people will talk about Kusto engine. Many people will talk about Azure Data Explorer. Many people will talk about Log Analytics Workspace, Application Insight, Resource Graph. All these terms you will hear. But Kusto itself is also a query language, same as T-SQL. Or SQL is the language, T-SQL is a dialect. But Kusto itself is also a language that if you are monitoring or if you have a bunch of resources in Azure, I'd highly recommend that, you start learning this language a little bit. It's pretty similar to SQL Server or T-SQL. When I show you some of the syntax and how to write this, I think it will make more sense. Now, what's special about this, right? So Microsoft actually needed this for their own reason. And what do I mean by that, right? So if you come to this slide. Is this mine or someone needs to go on mute? Okay, are you good now?
I think we're good, yes.
Okay, awesome. So if you look at this slide, sorry. So in 2014, this was a R&D project for Microsoft itself. started in their office in Israel because they needed something to monitor all their resources, right? Because cloud was growing, they're having these big data centers, they are size of multiple soccer fields, and hundreds and thousands of servers, cooling, power, network, data moving in and out. All that. How do they monitor this, right? Thousands and thousands of disks. How do they know which one is behaving bad, which one is not working the way they want, and all that? So it became a problem for Microsoft. And then, this R&D project, they came up with something that they're going to collect all these logs. They're going to compress this, index this, and when I say index, I mean column store index, and they will not edit this data. Means there's no update, right? Because as soon as you start updating, you're talking now, maintaining your indexes are going to change. You have to update statistics and all that. They didn't want any of this. So this data was presumed mostly will be read-only, highly compressed column store index. So they can quickly extract what they're looking for, right? They're quickly looking for the telemetry that Microsoft is looking for. So that was the beginning. And then application insight analytics started using this. 2018, Microsoft launched their own service called Azure Data Explorer. It has nothing to do with what I'm talking about today, but just so you know, if you're using that service, that's using actually a Kusto engine underneath. And in 2019, it was, in Ignite, it was announced as a general availability for everyone to use. So that's kind of a little bit of background of this. This is a copy paste from the URL that you see at the bottom of this slide. This is trying to give you a picture of what I'm going to talk about today. So on the left of the screen, you see all these resources, right? And it can be any resource. It can be our database, it can be server, it can be as you can see in your operating systems, VM and all that, right? And all of these resources, there are two kind of data we are interested about. One is a matrix. And when I say matrix in a very loose term, we can compare this with WMI counters, right? It's a single piece of information at a precise time, giving us a precise information, like how much my disk is being used at this point of time at 6:18 EST or EDT, right? And then I also have logs. Logs is giving me a little bit more details, right? What happened, why I could not connect to it. I had a wrong password, the login doesn't exist, the connection timeout, this and that. So once we collect all these two different kind of information, and on the right side, we can see that what are the possibilities, right? So I'll talk about a little bit of log analytics today, and we'll also talk about the response, the alert. The time permits, I can show you some of the connectors it has with Power BI. But as you see on the right side, the possibility is endless. You can do whatever you want to, pretty much. So you can have Logic App, you can have Azure Functions, you can have Azure Automation, whatever you want, right? You can even have auto scale, right? So if my CPU is at this percent for a certain period of time, or if I see that there are more connections for a certain period of time, it means I'm doing more business, auto scale my resources, right? Scale up. If I see it's down, you can scale down. You can have dashboards on top of that. You can create your own dashboard in Log Analytics Workspace. These are called workbooks. You can have Power BI connector and pull that data, and you can have shared, Power BI solutions to your other people in the company. So, again, whatever you want to do. This is a similar concept, but what it's showing is that um, I can have a central logging place, right? So I'm not trying to connect the dots separately, right? Is it because the disk went down and that's why I had this issue, or my disk was full, or my IO performance went down, or whatever, right? So you can now get all your logs, including if you connect, if you're connected on premises with Purview, you can actually send these logs from your on premises data center to the cloud and in one place. So now once you collect everything in one place, and then now you can do joins between different repository, you can have your dashboards, you can correlate data from different sources, and you can quickly troubleshoot your problems, right, if you have complex solutions. um, as I've been saying, like the possibility is endless, right? But you have to have your base done correctly, right? Unless you understand how these things work together, it will be very hard for you to put a solution like this that, that can monitor centrally all your resources. So just for our purpose, because this is mostly a data platform group, so today, if you have a Azure SQL database sitting inside Azure SQL Server, which is a logical, and if you send this data uh, underneath, as you see, I've talked about, there are KQL Magic, which is a Jupyter notebook. There's also extensions in the Azure Data Studio. One is a Kusto, and there's a new extension called Azure Monitor Logs. You can use all three for you to extract information when you have an issue with that, right? So, and I'll show you how to set this up. We might not go into details about this. Like I said, this is the introductory session just to give you a little bit more idea. Now, some of you might be saying, not another language, right? Can I use T-SQL? Unfortunately, if you are using Azure Monitor, Log Analytics Workspace, you cannot. As you can see, I put a code from Microsoft Learn website, and I highlighted a few things in yellow. You cannot. If you are using Azure Data Explorer as a service, there are some support of T-SQL, but again, highly discouraged by Microsoft. They really want you to use Kusto query language. Again, it's the same thing. It's a copy paste from there. So how can you learn, right? So I have a reference slide. I have a bunch of things that I noted there. And then you also have demo environment, and we will be using this. If you go to this URL, https help.kusto.windows.net, there are a bunch of data that continuously being fed by Microsoft, and is free for us. So if you just have a portal account, even you do not have any credit, that is fine. You can still use this and practice. And I have a little bit more, few more resources in the at the end. There is a slide. Again, you can go to log data, IoT database. All this data is available if you go to that free cluster that I talked about, and you can practice. Depending on what kind of data you want to play with, and these are all free for us. So you are not paying for anything, just so you know. So that's pretty much I have for slide. But before I go there, I wrote all this for you to, so you can go and play with this. This is a Pluralsight course, very useful. It's over 4 hours, but this has been sponsored by Microsoft. So even if you do not have a paid account in Pluralsight, you just need a login, you can use this. You're not going to get charged for this. Microsoft also has on the Learn website, there is a module. It's about close to 1 hour. And then, there are a bunch of places you can go and, practice. So I'm just going to stop sharing this. And any question at this time? I think this will be a good time. Oh, my camera was on. I didn't realize. So it's okay. It's fine. I just thought, not to distract people. So this will be a good time to take questions. Anybody has any question?
Yeah, if anyone have any question, please feel free to ask.
Because the rest of the time till 7:15, Paul said, I'll be in demo And like I said, I'm probably not going to finish everything, so I'll share everything with everyone, and so you can go and try out some of these things by yourself. If not,
yeah, I think if there is any question, you can put in the chat, and I can read that loud, when you're demoing. So it should be okay. Oh, you got mute in mute tab.
Yeah, these are all written in for KQL. So, and I have wrote extensive instructions for each of these. I have 6 of these. And like I said, you probably won't be able to get to all this, but I'll try to do as much as I can. And I want to save last 10 minutes to show you with the Azure SQL database and the server, how you can do some of the setup that I've been talking about. And please stop me, if you see something that interesting, and then you want to, talk about this. So all of this, as you see, I said here, I'm going to use this demo cluster. So let me close some of this.
Tab, you're not sharing this screen, are you?
Okay, so when I stop right here, I was sharing. Okay, sorry. Okay, now you should be able to see that.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, great. Okay, so I'll be switching between Azure Data Studio and a browser. So if we go to that URL that I talked about, this is a demo website. Sorry, it's a demo repository, I would say. It's provided by Microsoft. And like I said, bunch of data is continuously being fed, as you will see, and we are not paying for it. I just need a portal account. So this is the same view, even if you set this up in your own subscription as a log analytics workspace, right? So I'm just going to talk about this a little bit, what is what. So if you press F11, you go to full screen mode, so you get a little bit more real estate, right? On the left side, and I'm talking about this in a very loose term, so don't hold me on this. You can think of this as a database, right? They're grouped, different kind of data grouped together. Underneath this, you'll see, I call this kind of table, but again, like I said, I'm using these terms very loosely for the sake, so you can kind of, connect what we are used to, right, as a database professional. Within this, you'll see all your columns, and the columns have different data type, right? So it's the date time, dynamic string, and I have a URL that will talk about all these data types, right? So these are all here. On any of this table, you can always come here and you can click. It will actually give you a preview of the data, right? What kind of columns and what kind of data is there. You can do that. Also, there's a useful link, and you can instead go to the editor. It will bring the table name here. And if we run this, it's going to give us the data from. So it's pretty much saying select top 30,000 rows. One thing I'll warn you, and this is exact same behavior in log analytics workspace. You always get top 30,000 row if you do not have any filter. And look at this. You always get last 24 hours data. Doesn't matter if you do a count, you do a group by, aggregations. Always remember, you always get last 24 hours unless you have a filter on this time generated column. If any of you are new to this, you can also go to the queries, and what it does, select go to database. There are some sample queries that's provided by Microsoft. So, again, it talked about a little bit more. What does this query do? And I can also run this. So I don't know if it has data. It probably doesn't have any data here in the last 60 minutes. But all I'm trying to say is you can always get a head start, from here if you want to know. Maybe there is no deadlock, but maybe we can go to the average CPU one and then run. As you can see now, we have, some data is showing up here, right? And these are all free data, as I said. So let's go and run this again here. Minimize this. Couple of things here you can do. This doesn't give you all the columns, but if you need more columns, you can see here. You can add those columns if you want to. You can also do a group by, right? I'll show you how to write group bys, but if you're brand new, you can drag this here. Now this is all group by computer name. If you want to do that, okay? Now it gives you all the details here. In case if you're interested, if you don't want this, you can also remove it. Then it goes there. There's one thing is built in here. Some visualization. So this data might not be ideal, but for any data you have here, if you're doing some aggregation, you can always generate a chart right there without doing anything else. And then you can do some formatting. So these are all built-in features, right? What kind of chart you want, what you want in your legend, how do you split, and what kind of aggregation. It's also built in. Let's take this out. There are a couple of things that can help you out if you are getting started. What's new? There's a community forum. There's also a community Git repo. You can go and take a look if you want to. Okay. Any questions so far?
I got a question, Type, like the source of this data is, I understand this is from Microsoft. It's like a dummy data or is real data?
Yes, it's dummy data.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, they're all dummy data, as you can see, like, the
Yeah. Got
it. Yeah, they wouldn't share customers.
Oh yeah, completely.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. Okay, so these are, so let me go back. So I wrote some stuff. I'm going to copy this, bring up here. There's another thing we want to see, right? Because we always want to know the query. So, it gives you some CPU time and, age of the process data. It gives you like some of this stuff. Was there parallelism here? Not applicable. So give you a little bit of your, whatever your query stats kind of, I would say. So I showed you this. If you run this, again, I'm saying select top 30,000 for last 24 hours, right? And you'll see the data here. Here I'm doing a little bit of aggregation with order by and a group by, and I'll go into these details. The reason I'm running this, I have a reason here. So this gives you a fancy chart, right? I know there's a lot of data here, but again, I'm trying to show that you do not need to create charts. It's built in. You can just come here and use it. So let's go to file number 2. Now we'll spend a bunch of time on this. It has most of the common operators that you will be using in the Kusto query language. So I'm going to take this out, get this down. Okay. Again, I have instructions. Every operator that I'm using, I also put the Learn website because we do not have time to talk into details, right, about everything. Otherwise, we'll be here for days. So if you want to learn more, you should go to this. It will take you right there, right, from the Microsoft website. Do not use this. This is saying go to every repository, every table, every column, search for CPU case insensitive. So do not use this. This is a little bit better. It is going to find the Azure metrics, which is probably under. I'm not going to try to find inside metrics, custom logs. No, sorry, log management is here. Yeah, Azure metrics. So it will find this for you, and it will search all columns for CPU. A little bit better. If you really want a case-sensitive search, you have to mention that. So let's take a look at this too. So most of the time, anything we write will probably be aggregation or a search, right? I think, if we are trying to troubleshoot anything. So here, you'll see that we have CPU uppercase. I'm sure there will be some, scenarios where we'll see like, yeah, CPU lowercase, right? So we can see both here. But if I run this, this time I'm only going to see uppercase CPU. I'm pretty sure there's no lowercase because I'm saying this. This one is more restrictive. Yes, Messi, go ahead.
Yeah, so just quick question. This search, does it do search across all columns? Because what I see that
Yes,
that
yes.
it is metric
This one.
name only. Okay.
Yeah, I'm getting to your, so you'll get your answer.
Okay, no problem. Thank you. Sorry about
Yeah.
that.
No, that's fine. I said, bring up questions. It's good.
Yeah.
It's a good observation that you did that. I was about to talk about it. So I just answered your question here. Restrict search to one column in a table,
Okay.
right? So now I'm saying, look at only this column. And you are right. This one is all column. So what you said is absolutely right. It's a good observation. Now, I would not find CPU word in any other column. It might be a coincidence, but it's only looking at the metric name column, which is this one, right? If I want an exact match, so I see that here we have percent CPU, but I also have the other things, right? Which has the word CPU. But now if I do this, it's more restrictive, same column, but it's the exact match for that one metric, right? Which I said like before, it's similar to like WMI counters. I can also combine my search, right? I can say I need both of this. Doesn't matter what column, right? So this has to match. So it has to get, it saw this in the resource column, but it probably saw the other thing right here, right? Discrete bytes per second. And these two combination. Now we are used to where clause more, right? Instead of search, because in T-SQL there's not a keyword named search, not that I use. There may be one that that I'm not aware of. And now look at this. So far you see this last 24 hours, right? Now look at this. If I put my cursor here, do you notice that? It's a set inquiry. So it's intelligent enough. Now it knows that it's not by default 24 hours, right? Because now I have a filter on the time generated column. So now it's giving me only the data from last 1 hour. It still is going to give me last top 30,000 if there is. Right? Yeah, 30,000. So there was more than 30,000 record came in last 1 hour. I can also do this, right? Pretty much T-SQL, where and but look at this. This is not T-SQL that not standard, right? Three-wire clause. Here you can do that. This is not allowed in T-SQL, right? Stackable wire operators. Here you can do that. So again, the concept is same, right? If we look at a query plan, I know I'm not going to go into T-SQL query plan here. Our goal is always to restrict the set as quickly as possible, right? So if you're looking at a query plan, starting from right, I know some people will say read from left. I always read from right. I cannot read from left, to be honest with you, unless I'm looking at some matrix in the last node. We try to restrict at the beginning, right? So the whole query plan has to work with the smaller set, right? You don't want to work on all this and at the end throw all the data, right? After doing all the aggregation. Here it is saying, if you're looking for last 1 hour, you better put that at the beginning and then you do this. Whatever is, filter you want to put later on. I think it's a common, technique that we learn whenever you're writing query. It doesn't matter what language this is, but it still applies. You can also simulate what I just showed you with where clause, right? Where is star means look at all the columns. I'm not going to run this. We can also do some regex here, right? Regular expression on the column. So I'm doing a regular expression match on the resource column. I put this very simple one just so it's easy if someone is not too familiar with regular expression, what I'm doing here, right? So if we go to the resource column, we should see that it should match this regular expression. Resource, right? Resource. So yeah, so CH1, and then it has A to Z, right? So that's why it matches here. Limit is like top 10, right? Random top 10, right? A lot of if you especially ask someone very new to SQL Server or T-SQL, they see that if they're running top 10, they always see the same result set. Some people think that there is order, right? There's really no order to that, unless you put order, in your filter, in your T-SQL. So this is just random top 10, whatever is in the cache, right? We can do that. You can combine your top 10 with this query that I showed you. It will do all this, and then it will just give you the top 10. We can count. Again, the catch here, and I'll probably repeat this few more times because I got caught with this before. This is just counting for the last 24 hours. So just keep that in mind, right? The count is for last 24 hours, not the whole collection. We can use count with other stuff. So I can do all this and then say count. Summarize is something we know as like a group by write. So in T-SQL. So this is giving me a count of each metric by metric name. And I can, as you see this column name, right? Count underscore, not very friendly. So if I want a friendly column name, I can do this. Okay? Same query, this time with a friendly column name. I can do it by multiple columns if I want to. And with summarize, I can also do other aggregations. Here I did a max. I also had a filter with CPU. Okay? I can do that. Now, bean is very interesting. I like this. It's kind of a slicer, right? If I'm looking at a piece of data, and for us, say, for example, if I have Azure SQL database, someone reported an issue, they don't know the exact time, you are trying to figure out from the logs, bean can be very handy. In T-SQL, we do this kind of like a group by hour. First, we probably do a group by day, then we go to hour, then we go by minute, right? And you will find T-SQL that, that will teach you how to, you can group by 5 minute, 10 minute. But here you do not have to do that. You can just change the timing here. As you can see, I did this for per day, right? How about if I do this now by hour? Right? And I go to my chart. I'm saying, really boring chart, right? I really don't know what happened here. I can reduce it to 30 minutes to get more granular data. Maybe I'm not going to get here. I think this is probably, probably some bot is sending this data. Maybe they're exact same count, but you get the idea, right? Without writing another T-SQL, you can just reduce this and it will slice your data by 5 minutes, right? So it will be easier for you to see any blip. Right here, you can see a little bit of drop here, but this is not interesting. Maybe I need to change this to something else. Yeah, I put number of entries, probably not a good idea. I should probably, my bad. I probably should, pick up something anyway, to make it a little bit more interesting. You can do extend, which kind of like a computed column, right? I want to see how much headroom I have for CPU with total minus average. So I can do that similar to, like, as I said, like a computed column. String concatenation, there is no data. Okay, yeah, you can see your headroom here. I've noticed skip view that I don't, see more interesting. You can always, like I said, download and, practice it by yourself. Project is something, because these tables are very wide, right? And Microsoft is actually rewriting some of this stuff now with the new Azure Monitor. Initially, when these things came out, they had a wide table with hundreds of columns, and most will be null because they had one schema to cater for all kind of resources. So if you do not want to, like see all this like null, or like non-interesting, so you can always, I just want to see these columns, right? That means project. This is pretty much saying like select A, B, C, D from table T, right? Something like that. You can also do extend with the project if you want to. There's a project away, which is interesting. T-SQL doesn't have this concept. It's pretty much saying, give me all the columns other than these. So it will not give you these columns, but give you everything else, which I find very interesting. So it didn't give you the resource ID, resource provider, but give you the other two resource ones. This thing we are familiar with, so it's available. You can do a filter and then distinct. You can just get like just random. No, top 10 distinct. Okay. Top 20, random 20. You have sort, right? So we have sort in T-SQL, similar, very similar concept. So I'm not going to run this, but you get this idea. Now, in log analytics workspace, because you are collecting all kind of logs, you will see data in different columns with XML, with JSON, and like a key value pair, right? Type of data. And sometimes it is not very easy to read, especially if you're trying to extract that data and trying to send an alert, either, whatever tool you use at your workplace. If someone gets up at, say like morning 2 o'clock and they see this huge JSON or, XML, kind of hard, right, to find. So all of these, like JSON, XML, there's other ones, they have built-in functions, so you can slice it. So you can go and extract exact key value pair that you're looking at, and then you can transport it to a table format, and then you can send alerts, so which will make it easier for you. So I put some, I'm not going to, I'm going to show this on parse. So parse kind of, you have a string expression, and parse can, get your values, and so let's just run this here. See, so it's, sometimes I get surprised with these things. Means they are not populating this table. So I think I have. Okay, so I have another example here. So if you're collecting this, right, it's kind of hard to read and depending on what you're looking for. So let, I know I haven't talked about let, it's pretty much declaring a variable. So I'm declaring a variable and then I'm going to use parse and then parse some of this data, put it into a table format. Interesting. Okay, I didn't select the top. Okay. So now you see what I did. I took this call data and now I parsed everything into a table format, right? So it will be a lot easier for us to consume. And you can write more queries to generate alert on this, right? If you want to. Between is interesting here. So that's how you write. If you're looking for everything between 10 and 20. I know the question will come is 10 and 20 is inclusive, right? So if we go to percent CPU, oh, I'm looking at percent CPU, okay? Average, sorry, I'm looking at this. So, yeah, so anything greater than, so it's probably from, I don't see anything exact 10 or 20 because all of this is decimal. Probably inclusive. And then there's something also called not in between, right? So if you're looking at something outside the range, you can use that. If you have a JSON column with the JSON type of data, you can use parse JSON. So here I'm doing this parse JSON on the text column. And then let me run this. So now you see this text column, right? This one is small, only has two values, like two, key value pair. But imagine if you have one of these with, bunch of this, right? And some of this you are not probably interested. So here I want to see the drive letter. And I would just want to see the size. It's more easily readable from here. So this is what exactly I'm doing. I'm putting this in this variable. And then I'm using what are the keys that I'm looking for. Parse XML. We looked at JSON. This is another one. If you have XML data, what can you do? So I have this as an example. Again, I can parse some of this, put it in this format, whatever I need to. Time span, because you'll be always playing with the date time column at the beginning for all collections. If you want to present this in a different way, you can use this format, whatever format works for you. And it's the same data. I'm just presenting in 3 different formats. This is not important. So now there's another website you can go and run some of this for. So I'm going to show you some of the visualizations. Here. So let me take these data. And here. This is another one. You have a bunch of this sample data that you can use for free. So render is something, is this too small? Maybe I make it a little bit bigger. Yeah. So before I showed you how you can click and create charts, but if you want to put it in your code, then you can control better, right? What kind of chart you want, and there are other things you can do. So this will straight give you a chart instead of you clicking anything, right? Again, similar concept, different charts if you want. Okay, these are all available. So now at the end, what I did, I put a bunch of these operators that I talked about together and trying to just show you how you can use this, right? This is a chart, but I'm not going to read the chart. I mean, that's not the point here. Any question?
I don't see any question in the chat.
Okay. I'm going to skip. I'll show you the file. They're very simple. It talks about more of aggregations, right? How you can summarize, aggregate, because that's what, like I said, as a database engineer, you'll probably be mostly doing aggregations because you're always looking for when things are not normal, right? That's kind of our job, right? To know. So if you're writing alerts, which I'll show you at the end, so I think I'm going to skip this one, just for the interest of time. But you can, like I said, you'll get this. So let's go with the working with data sets. Maybe I think this one will be a little bit more interesting. Okay. F11, get a little bit more real estate, close this. So, so far what I've shown you, really very simple, right? A simple operator, doing some filtering, doing a little bit of aggregation. Um, um, but there are more to this, right? If you want to have a variable, you can do this with let. And again, don't worry about what I'm doing here. These are all for demo purpose. So I kind of declared 3 different variables here, and then I'm using all 3 here, right? Just to give you an idea that, where you can use variables, right? This is another example with the same thing. Now we can do join here, right? Like I said in the slide that if you have data you are collecting from all different places, how can you do joins and try to get more insight, right? So how do you do that? So just to give you an example here, very simple. I did 2 let, I mean, I have 2 tables, and then I'm doing a join here. Now, why, one thing got caught, I when I started looking at this, I made some mistake on the join, because in T-SQL, if you just say join, what is the default join type you get in T-SQL? You do not
Is it like outer join, left outer join, or
you get inner
or
join,
full
right?
outer join? Oh yeah.
You get inner join by default. And that's what I thought here, right? But what happened here, if you see, it did not happen. I got 5 rows, right? Even though I have, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Then I found out here, if I say inner join explicitly, I get more records here. So there's something called inner unique. You do not have to mention this. I just mentioned this just so you know. By default in Kusto, inner unique is your default join, not the inner join. There's a difference. So, and I put a URL here if you want to go and read about this a little bit more. So just so you know when you're writing joins. And I gave an example here. If someone want to correlate memory and CPU, how you can do that, right? Not that this example has any correlation, I don't know, but just showing you, available memory with CPU. And there's also something called previous and next, which is, I think, what is the lag and lead, right? Pretty new T-SQL functions, operators that you can use, similar concept. you can do that. As you can see here, it got sliced by every hour, right? We saw the bin function. Pretty much similar concept here. You can do like slice by, and then you can do a chart here, right? If you want to, right? Built in. This is also interesting that it can detect. So I was doing a running total for Alice's salary. As soon as it sees that the name is not the previous name, means Bob, it will start a new series, right? You can do that. This is the operator. Now, caching is a big deal for us, right? We always think about, is my data pages cached? Is my plans are cached? So I don't have to go to the disk every time. In Kusto today, for log analytics workspace, you do not get this functionality. As you will see here, I'm only going to get one result set. And I did not know about this, so I asked a question in Stack Exchange a long time ago, and someone answered it. So this works for log analytics workspace, but not for, this works for Azure Data Explorer, not for log analytics workspace, right? So if I take this here, and we were playing with here, right? So if I go and go to a new query, you will see 3 data sets, right? So it cached the result set one time, and then it used that random set variable, whatever was saved, used it to do the other 3 calculations that I asked for. So that's on this one. Let's see what we have. So I'm on number 4. I'm probably going to skip number 5. Number 5 is mostly machine learning. So there are a bunch of machine learning algorithms that are available in Kusto, so you do not have to write your own. Like if you're trying to see what kind of patches are failing across your thousands of your servers, right? What kind of updates. So if you pushed update to like 100,000 servers, you want to see what kind of machines are failing, like what's common criteria in those machines. So you can use some of the machine learning algorithms, and I have put just 2 very basic examples that people use. One is a basket algorithm, is a very common. If you want to, I'm sure if any of you went for CS major, you probably ran across this in the college, even if you haven't used it at work. Auto cluster is another one, right? So basket is like all retailers pretty much use it, right? If you buy bread, what are the chances that you're going to buy egg, butter, jam, and jelly, and that kind of stuff, right? And that's how they put their stuff. So I put a bunch of comments here. Look at that. Yes, I'm going to talk about the 6th one. This one is a little bit, yeah. So if we take this here, we might have already used this same one, but so some of this. So once you run this, you can do a couple of things. You can download this result set. You can export it in CSV. Of course, you can save it. I tested it before, that's why it gives me like file number 1. You can also open in Excel, but the interesting is the Power BI, right? Query to Power BI, and I did write instructions here how to do this. So should I show this, or I should really show something with the SQL Server database, how to set up all this? What everyone wants? We have about 10 minutes.
I'll be interested to see the Power BI one.
Okay.
I don't know how about others.
Like I'm open to anything. I practice this, enough time, so I take this. So yeah, for me, I do not use Power BI that much, but I know a lot of people use it. So so let's look at this quickly, and then we'll go to the portal, look at few stuff, and we'll call it a day. So I mean, I can hang out. Don't get me wrong.
No, please. Thank you.
Yeah, whenever I present, I clear up my calendar. I have a little bit of derail with the power outage that Paul I pinged, and that got me a little bit nervous today, because then I'm really a little bit behind in the setup that normally I do. But anyway, so go to the get data in Power BI. The instruction changes because now it has a built-in connectors. So okay. Yeah. So now if you can go here, this is pretty new. Before you have to do it, you have to do it in a different way. But now, so if we go to our instructions, we'll cluster for this. This is again the test cluster that given by Microsoft.
Taro, for example, these particular cases, when is a cluster, is it a subscription level link? For example, if you would like to say, look into our Azure resources cost, say I use Azure Data Factory, Snaps, Azure SQL DB, then what link I should pass here?
Right. So for us, we are, like at work, I don't use this. I only use Log Analytics Workspace, and I'll show you the URL for that.
Okay.
But if you are using Azure Data Explorer as a service, if any of you, right? Like if you are working in a factory, power plant, oil refinery, if you are using Azure as your monitoring solution, I'm pretty sure you are probably using Azure Data Explorer, right? If you watch the Celtics game tonight, right? All these sensors, they're sending probably to Azure Data Explorer service. So what happened is all this data come in, right? Ingesting, they're automatically sliced, compressed, indexed, and then you can run this query. That's why the data is pretty quick.
Thank you.
So that's a separate service, but for monitoring, we can use, and I'll show that to you. So yeah. And then if we put our query here, okay, it will probably ask me to connect right now. Hopefully. You see, so the data is here, right? It pulled it. Now if I load it, and I'm not in apply changes, there are pending changes, okay. Okay, done, good. Right, so now this part, some of you are definitely expert than me. It's not me, so it's loading the data here. And then okay, right now, like I said, I'm not an expert on this. Oh, pause video. What is this now? Okay. I don't know. Maybe some of you can help me out. So now you can. Why I cannot? Okay. Refresh. Yep. Yeah, I'm not going to go further. Like I said, I'm not an expert on this, right? But you get the idea. So I can load this data, create my dashboard, share it with my people. They can refresh it whenever they want, or auto refresh. I know I know a couple of things about Power BI dashboard, so you can consume this data. Make sense now?
Completely.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. So let's go to the portal. Let me show you. And I'm not happy the way I have my setup in portal. I have outage this afternoon, and but I will provide all the scripts to you, to all of you, to let me show you. So let me close this. So I'll give you this script. This does all the setup, starting with creating Azure SQL database, Azure SQL Server, creating a log analytics workspace and sending you logs. How do you set up alert? I'm going to take this off my phone number, email. How do you really action this, right? If you want to get notified if a server is down, it can send you an email. It can even send you a SMS text, or it can even send you a phone call. So let's look at some of this stuff. How do we do this? So I have a server here. Azure SQL Server is a logical container. It's a PaaS model. The first thing I do here is I set up auditing. Now, as you can see here, my audits are going to this log analytics workspace, right? I can also send it to Event Hub, or I can send it to storage. If you are trying to keep this data for years, log analytics will get expensive for you pretty soon. So in those cases, you might want to keep it in your storage, which is a lot more cheaper. But then it's not readily available to query the way I'm going to show you. Now, under this server, I also have a database. In the database, and all this, I don't do this from here. We have functions that goes and set this up. I also have PowerShell. You can also use Azure CLI. You can do it from Portal, just if you want to learn. But if you have to scale this out, it's not just practical. And I have this setting. Again, I'm sending this to Log Analytics Workspace. I can send it to storage account. I can send it to Event Hub. I can send it to partner solutions. So this is new. Partner solutions means if you have some of the third-party tool, I'm not going to name anyone. If you use any of those, they are also now working with Microsoft to consume this data and give you, alerts and, dashboards and all that. You can do that. When I talk to people, a lot of people say, hey, I monitor stuff using metrics. I get it. It's okay. So I can look at my CPU percent, right? I can look for last 30 minutes, apply. There's nothing. So maybe because I'm not doing anything, I just set this up. Yeah, so here I had some blip. It's good. I can also create an alert from here. But imagine, like I said, you have 200 of this. Are you going to do this 200 times, right? And if you want to make a change, you have to go to 200 places and change that, right? So this is a good place to play with, to configure your stuff. But once you know what you want, this is not the way to do. So the way to do it is send everything to diagnostics to one place. And you might have a couple of log analytics workspace. I might have one for prod, one for non-prod, one for UAT. And why? Because as you can see here I'm sending all logs, right? If it's a non-prod, do I need all of this or do I care? Probably no. If it's my prod, yes. And even within the prod, it's in your, and I'm not going to go into, you have to decide, right? So you might have different log analytics workspace for different ones, and you might want to set those up in that way. And this is the one I could not finish today because I lost my, it's again, it has some issue that it's unknown, which is very, I did not expect this, but yeah, I don't know why. Normally this works. I could not figure this out. I just didn't get time because I lost internet power. That kind of set me back. And it's through my script, and I just don't know what happened there. But once you have this set up, fine, so go there. What you can do, uh, I don't know if I can do this here anymore. Or no, let me show you in a different one. It's the same thing. I mean, you don't want to set it up here. You want to set it up in the log analytics workspace. So here now I can have an alert rule. And in the alert rule, right, I can choose any of this. But normally I don't do it this way, right? In my enterprise, the way we do this, and I'll show you here, we'll put one of this Kusto query language, right? See if I'm looking for deadlock in last 16 minutes, I'm going to search my log analytics workspace. I'm going to look for deadlock, and then I'll say, okay, if the deadlock count is more than X in last X number of minutes, then you send me a action. Now, what is action, right? If you look at here, for me, here I have action group, right? And I said, I have email DBA, SMS DBA, and phone DBA. And then I added those into my action group, right? The receivers. In your real life scenario, you can do a bunch of things. You can send this action group as a webhook. You can call another function. You can have an automation runbook. So you can, like I said, you can scale up. You can shut down a VM. You can, spin up, say like, change my SQ, right? Go from 8 core to 16 core. You can do whatever you want with this alert, right? And then how frequently you run this, right? You can choose same as like a SQL Server agent. You can set this up for 30 minutes. You can set this up for run every 60 minutes and whatnot. Now, using Azure Data Studio, you can also query your log analytics with a notebook. So I'll show you something. This is pretty new. This is something called extension. So in Azure Data Studio, it's a very lightweight tool. So you can always enable disable extensions. That way you can work with this. So if you have this extension enabled, what you can do now if you connect, of course, like I showed you, my log analytics workspace for some reason is not working. But here now you see there are three things. You can see your Azure monitor log. And if you put your extension ID or your workspace ID and connect, this will most likely fail. I even don't know if I can get the oh, it has a workspace ID. I'm surprised that it gives me ID, but it cannot find it. So yeah, I'll be surprised if it finds or connect to it. Oh, it did. Wow. So now you have a connection, same as like a SQL Server. And now I can write Kusto query language and directly query my log analytics workspace, right? So I can have a bunch of this ready, right? Once I get alert, if I want to get like more troubleshooting, get more insight, you can have this predefined, write this and save this for your team, and then you can just use it, right? Whenever you need to. And so this is pretty new, came out from Microsoft, right? Before this, there was another extension, this one. And using this one was pretty cumbersome because this one was built in. So let me clear this. This one was designed to do a cluster for Azure Data Explorer, not for Azure Log Analytics Workspace. So, like we use this storm events few times, right? So instead of going to the browser, you can also do this from Azure Data Studio. And there was some there was some where you can really connect your log analytics workspace directly by like this, but you see, this is very cumbersome. Every time you have to have this connection string and then you can read data. So really not very friendly, right? So I would, after this one is out, I don't use those anymore, but I just still mention this in case, if you want to, if you're just interested. So I also have some query that I'll give to you that you can simulate a deadlock. And if you replace in the demo your phone number and your email address, you can see that it sends you an email, and it also send you really a phone call, and it reads the whole alert, right, that you have a deadlock.
Type, where your code will be? Is it in the GitHub or?
Yes, in my GitHub repo. I want to test. I want to find out what changed today, that why my log analytics workspace is not functional. I don't want to upload it and people having problem. I need to sort this out. As soon as I sort it out, I'll send it to you.
That'd be great. Thank
you. So that's all I have. So I can take questions, comments, anything, right? Like I said, I'm not in a rush. So if you have anything, let me know. Otherwise, again, these are my contacts. And again, I really, thank you for listening to me. Hopefully, some of this can become useful, at your work.
Yeah, Magic, you go ahead.
Yeah, so yeah, Taiba, first, it's excellent presentation. At least for me, I'm relatively new to all this, so it's always good to get exposure and learn new things.
Thank you.
So, question about, because you started with the language really, KSQL. I call it KSQL, maybe it's differently, KQL, right? But a question that I have is, you presented this from the monitoring perspective. Basically, that means that kind of input is Microsoft proprietary, I call it like that, Microsoft proprietary format. And my question is following: Can we, using KQL, query business data? Meaning, for whatever reason, I want to query my data lake where I have a delta table and I want to join data from there with some of the analytics to enrich my reporting or do whatever is. So basically, to be used more kind of as well on application side in conjunction with monitoring.
Yeah.
I don't know if my question was clear.
Yeah. So you really talking about you want to, this is the data dog. I don't want to what? You cannot do what you exactly said, but I would suggest you to look at this. No, again, it brings me here. Sorry, that was not my intent. So, yeah, I would suggest you read this. Basic. Azure Data Explorer itself is service designed for what you are talking about, right?
Okay.
Optimized for streaming data.
Is it as well based on the KQL?
Yes, it's a KQL engine. So like I gave you example, I personally know Microsoft, all these data centers, right? This huge soccer field type, they use this for monitoring, right? Power plant, oil refineries. Like I said, tonight's Celtics game is probably going to use this, right? So this is huge data getting ingested, but I need to get analytics out of it pretty quickly. So that is why log analytics workspace doesn't let you update any data, only you can purge data, right? Time-based purge from the bottom. So no change, no update. It's ingested, compressed, indexed as it's coming in. That is why it's so fast. That is why you can also send it to Event Hub. I don't know if you know about Event Hub, right? For exactly that purpose. So I'm constantly looking at this. Any deviation, I want to get alerted. That's the purpose of this. But later on, Microsoft also now the Azure Monitor, it's the same purpose, right? For me, I want to know out of my 100 Azure SQL database if someone is behaving bad, right? So it's continuously my logs, my diagnostic data is coming, and I'm running this function, my Kusto queries at whatever interval I want to, and I get alerted. So I give you a practical example at my workplace. This is not talking about any proprietary information. So we let the developers. Oh, Kevin had a question for Paul. So we let developers create databases, right? Because we wanted them to do like, in Azure, like, first develop, do not wait for us and do all that. And I don't know if you deployed the Azure SQL database. If you deploy, I can even show you one here, the one that I had. Yeah, I have it here. So if I go to here, see, I have a max size set to 10 gig, right? I can have a KQL. So if it reaches 9.5, call another Azure function and change this to 15 or 20 or increase it by what percent. So I do not know to be, I must say, I know I'm probably not answering your question directly. I think you want to look at your Azure Data Explorer. If you can use your business data with this service, you can use KQL. I do not think anybody use KQL to read the data from Delta Lake and stuff.
Okay. Okay, but basically, okay, I will read more about Data Explorer, but it seems that since it does have access to business data, it can be then used for regular data pipelines, and I mean, it's kind of another tool in the toolkit, right, to be used.
But I think your data has to be in Azure Data Explorer. That's under that service. That's kind of my understanding. I can be wrong, but I can find out for you. It's a good question. Maybe I should know if I'm presenting this, right? But I doubt very much. But I can definitely confirm from someone.
Okay.
I have never seen an example. Query data in Azure Delta Lake using it. You see, again, look at this now. So this, this is probably this is what exactly you're asking me. But again, you have to use Azure Data Explorer service.
I can add to that, for example, since I work with the I work with the day-to-day with the data lake or Delta Lake. So what do, we have either, you can have Azure Synapse Analytics or any notebook, then you can use the Spark SQL or Scala or Python. Those are the code actually you can use when you work with the data lake or Delta Lake. Yeah, not KQL. No.
Yeah, that's what I've never heard. But, again, I think if somehow you bring this service, then you probably can, probably can. So like I said, ideally, yeah, so it's oh, you see, okay, so now, okay, I see what they're doing now. They're creating external table to Azure Data Explorer and then using Kusto here. So yeah, Masik, I really do, I don't go any further because I probably will not give you the right information, to be honest with you.
No problem, no problem. This is useful. I will read more about it. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything else?
Yeah. Okay, folks, do you have any other question? Yeah, Kevin, you'll get an email because if you register for this event, you're going to get an email with the recording and all the content. Yeah. If you don't have any question, then thank you so much, Tav, for your time. It is really, really great to have you in our meetup.
Thank you for the opportunity. I don't take this lightly, and it was hopefully I can come down to your SQL Saturday and see all
yeah,
of you in
that'd be
person.
awesome.
Yeah.
That'd be great. Let me
Yeah.
know if you have time, or you can come and visit us in Toronto.
Yeah.
That'll be
Yeah.
we'll be very happy to have you in our Toronto session for different people at the community, and they can learn all the expertise you have, right, from you. That'd be great.
Yeah, Masik, if you have like specific scenario, I'm sure Paul can reach out to some people. Paul is there, or you can let me know. I can probably connect you with some people, but it looks like Paul already works with this stuff that you're talking about. So maybe you two can connect. Like I said, I'll never tell you something that just going to lead you to a wrong path. I do not know. I'll be just upfront. So.
Yeah. So just to clarify, my question is more theoretical. We do use, ADLS, we use Spark pools and everything, but I was just more where else we can use Kusto. That's really what I was after. What is actually proper use case for that Azure Data Explorer? Because that can it be used? Where is that line to use either Spark pool or whatever, and now something else, Azure Data Factory, or something else that can do pipeline, that can do move data, access data, transform data, push data somewhere else. So that would be good to have some guidelines. I mean, I guess from the Microsoft, what is the right tool to be used, because there are so many tools out there that are coming out, and different ways of doing things. So this is really what I was after. What is the right spot for the Kusto, really? That's really what I was after.
Yeah, I use 90% to be for monitoring. I'll be honest with you. That's my use, because I have huge state, huge number of resources. I cannot go and check one by one, right? So I have everything coming to a place. I have alerts set up. Anything goes beyond what I want will give me a ticket, using ServiceNow. That's my primary use. And then when someone tells me I have some queries written that I can go and dig further, right? I'm getting a timeout, I'm getting this. So that's the time we go and